We had completed till question 60. So today we'll start with question 61. So 61st question is, biodiversity forms the basis for human existence in the following ways. So they are saying that biodiversity exists, forms the basis for human existence. And biodiversity helps in a human existence in the following ways. And you have to find out which one. You have to select which one of them, how the biodiversity is helping humans. So if biodiversity is important, first you have to learn the definition of biodiversity and then its importance, how it is useful for humans. Then their uses, what is the uses here? The same, that's why it is important. And then threats for biodiversity, what are the threats? And also you have to also look for the biodiversity distribution. Like for example, in which type of ecosystem the biodiversity is high, the relative biodiversity, in which type of ecosystem the biodiversity is high and which type of ecosystems or regions the biodiversity is less. So geographically, you have to know where the biodiversity is more and where the biodiversity is less, and which type of locations. For example, deserts, mountain. It may be desert ecosystem, coastal ecosystems, mountain regions. So you have to read or you have to give importance to where the biodiversity is high, where it is low, and which area of the map the biodiversity is high and biodiversity is low. And also the uses and the threats to biodiversity and what is biodiversity. I hope this is clear. So we'll move to the next question. The next question is, aspartame is an artificial sweetener sold in the market. It consists of amino acids and provides calories like other amino acids. Yet it is used as low calorie sweetening agent in food items. What is the basis of this use? So they are asking why this particular artificial sweetener is used as a sweetening agent. So, so the takeaway from this question is you have to understand what is this. First, you have to learn what is aspartame, and then you have to read about artificial sweeteners and also other food additives and their effects on human health and how it is useful. I mean, how it is used as a sweetening agent here and other sweeteners that are being used in this uh, used in India, and also the regulators for these artificial uh, sweeteners or artificial food additives that are used. FSSI is the organization that look after the food safety. So go through these basics and go through the details about FSSAI. The next 63rd question is, what is the purpose with which Sir William Baden-Burn and W.S. King had set up the Indian Parliamentary Committee in 1893? So here they are asking the purpose. So whenever you come across any committees in modern history, you have to read about the purpose and write it down. What is the purpose? Who did it? And what is the committee? So from here, you would understand that the committees that were formed during from 17th century to the mid of 20th century are important, and you have to understand their purpose also. So you have to behead these committees and their purpose and who were the chairman or the who are responsible who are working in that committee. So I hope you would, whenever you go through the modern history topic, you would learn about the purpose. Whenever some committee had been formed, you have to learn the purpose and if there were Indians involved in the committee or not, and what are the committees and what are the purposes. We'll move to the next question. The 64th question, what is the difference between CFL and an LED? See, again, they have asked about the difference between two close technologies or technologies which can act as alternatives. I mean, you can use CFL or you can use LED. So if you find such kind of technologies, read about that, read the difference between them. For example, currently you can come across any technology, like for example, normal computing and quantum computing. Just read about their difference. How does it, how these two technologies are very different. And also, for example, there was a policy. Uh, if there is a government policy regarding any such technologies implementation or acceptance by people, you have to go through that also. For example, there was a Ujala scheme that was implemented by the government of India. So we have to read about those schemes, and you have to understand which one is good, which one is bad, how it is good, how it is bad, and what are the chemicals here that are there available, that are released due to these products. Because e-waste management is also a part of main syllabus, and it's also part of GS3 environment. So go through the e-waste management rules also. 65th question. Recently, oil zapper was in the news. What is it? So if you come across any any terms, for example, here it's oil zapper. So go through that. At least remember what is it and what is it related to. You just have to know what are the basics of it. You just know, you don't even have to go very deep into it. Just have to go through the basics. Here it's a remediation technique to remove the oil sludge. So whatever it is an eco-friendly technology, if you come across any eco-friendly technology that has been recently introduced or which is has a future potential, go through that. It can be eco-friendly technology in constructing roads, constructing buildings, constructing, for making batteries, any, it can be in any field. Eco-friendly technology in any field. It's not just oil and other things, any field. And that becomes important for the syllabus because they've already asked here. So for example, if they are giving the latest technology, they have told, giving you an idea, the latest technology developed for undersea sea oil exploration, genetically engineered high biofuel yielding maize variety. It's the latest technology to control the accidentally caused flames from oil wells. See here, you can learn that biofuel yielding maize, or if there is something like that, you have to learn about that, and the crops which are used for biofuels. So these are the hints that UPSC is giving you. Eco-friendly technologies you have to study, and to clean up the environment. For example, if you have an eco-friendly technology for carry bags, so if there is an alternative for plastic, you have to read about that. Then there is the crops which are used uh, for fuel purposes. Those are eco-friendly technologies for uh, our fuel needs, energy needs. So read about all that. And in biofuels also, there are different types of generations of biofuels. So go and read about biofuels, biodiesel, and the difference between which one is good, which one is bad, which has a higher calorific value, which has a lower calorific value. For example, LNG, CNG, LNG, you have to know the comparisons. And here again, CNG, LNG, they can ask you the difference, just like they've asked the difference here, CFL and LED. So just go through the basics of it. So here they've asked a difference here, and this is about technology. They can ask you in economics also. For example, they can ask you the difference between RTGS, IMPS, NEFT. So go through this. Something which is very close to and which does the same purpose, but they're different. So read about those things. The next question, 66th is a married couple adopted a male child. A few years later, twin boys were born to them. The blood group of the couple is AB positive and O negative. The blood group of the three sons is A positive, B positive, and O positive. The blood group of the adopted son is. So here it's about how to find out the blood groups of the kids if the blood groups of the parents are given. So you have to read about this, and you cannot neglect this. If something comes about blood groups, you have to answer that. So read about the blood groups, different kinds of the categories of blood groups that are there, and which one is rare, which one is you know very can be easily available, which is called a universal donor. So at least go through the basics of the blood group and how to determine blood groups. The next question, 67th, it's about Mahatma Gandhi. Mahatma Gandhi said that some of his deepest convictions were reflected in the book titled Unto His Last, and the book transformed his life. What was the message from the book that transformed Mahatma Gandhi? See, there were certain influences, certain influences. For example, books and people also influenced Mahatma Gandhi. You have to learn about all those people who have a tremendous influence on Mahatma Gandhi and how they were influenced. I mean, how they were influenced and what did Mahatma Gandhi learn or implement in his life from them. So Mahatma Gandhiji's, the life and how it was, transformed his life. What are the things that transformed his life? And what are the, for example, even his books that he had written? You have to read about those. The books that he has written, the movements the struggles that he participated in, and the steps he had taken. So, and if he was a participant in the roundtable conferences, there were three roundtable conferences that happened. So, if he was any a part of that or not. So, and you have to also learn about his journey to South Africa, and and when did he come back? When did he start uh, the struggles here? I mean, the protest here in India, and what are the protests that he did in South Africa also. So we have to read about all that, the ashrams that he set up in South Africa, the ashrams that he has set up in India, the books he read, the books has written, the magazines and newspapers he was involved with. So whatever Mahatma Gandhi was involved with, or it was related to Mahatma Gandhi, you have to read that carefully and also remember it. So moving to the next question, with reference to Indian freedom struggle, Usha Mehta is well known for. So she was well known for what? The Secret Congress Radio. But you have to see other options also. Other options also gives you a hint of where to study, what to study. Participating in the second roundtable conference, leading a contingent of Indian National Army, assisting in the formation of interim government under Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru. So, if there are any women who participated in the roundtable conference, or the women who led the Indian National Army, or the women who were part of the Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru interim government, you have to read all these people. These are all important things because UPSC has already given you an indication that they may ask questions from this. So if you have to read about the roundtable conferences, all the roundtable conferences, who were participating, what happened, and what was the outcome of those roundtable conferences. You have to read about Indian National Army, where it was formed, who were the leaders, and what were the names, and all other things. And then the interim government, who were the part of the interim government, and what were the responsibilities. So please go through these basic things. 69th question again is a difference question. So a new optical disc format known as Blu-ray disc is becoming popular. In what way it is different from traditional DVD? See, again, if something is becoming popular, so if regarding with respect to the traditional technology that we are using, you have to learn about that. For example, quantum computing and normal computing, or in storage devices, there is this solid state devices that they have come. So you have to understand the difference between the normal previous storage devices and now the solid state devices. For example, we use that in pen drives and all. So go through those things and and see what is the difference and what is the benefit of using the latest technology and how it is different. I mean, how it is better than the previous technology. You have to understand all that. So whenever you're reading through any current affairs sources or any of your static sources, if you come across or newspapers, if you come across any new technology, your job is to find out how is it different and how it is beneficial to humans, and what are the uh, in what ways are they specifically different from the previous technologies. 70th question, with reference to the period of Indian freedom struggle, which of the following were recommended by the Nehru report? So Nehru report and its recommendation was important. I mean, is important, and also the people who were involved in creating this Nehru report is also important. What were the recommendations, and how does this Nehru report has any impact on? Does it have any impact on our Constitution of India? All that you have to learn, and also if there are any other reports, you have to be aware of that. For example, any reports that were committees that were created by Indians to give suggestions or to ask any reforms from the British government. All that is important. You have to go through these reports and recommendations, and here you have to by heart these things. For example, Nehru report recommendations, you have to buy hat. Next question, 71st. Among the following states, which one has the most suitable climatic conditions for the cultivation of a large variety of orchids with minimum cost of production and can develop an export-oriented industry in this field? So here they have given a description and they have said which one of the state is is ideal to grow a certain crop. This can be changed for any other crop, and they have given a state, or they can give you a state and they can ask which crop is most suitable to grow in that particular state or particular region. So uh, to learn about that, you have to know the climatic conditions required for any crop. Any crop. For example, at least the major crops, you have to learn the climatic conditions that are required and also the climatic conditions of every state that we of India. At least you have to know the basic whether it's you know whether it is the state has receives a very high rainfall, whether the state has all kinds of like for example, state has plains, plateaus, mountains, deserts. So you have to understand the climatic conditions and geographical features of that particular state. So that is that is important. You have to understand the climatic conditions and the conditions required for any crop to grow, at least for the major crops, and then the climatic conditions in the states. And you have to go through the climatic conditions and the details about all the states, at least all the states. I mean, if not other countries, at least our Indian states. You have to learn about the Indian states, geography, and also climatic conditions of those states. So here, Andhra Pradesh, Arunachal Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh, and Uttar Pradesh. So you have to go through at least these, even if they have given this, you have to go through at least these states and the major crops that they grow here. And what is Uttar Pradesh famous for, Madhya Pradesh famous for, Arunachal Pradesh famous for, and Andhra Pradesh famous for, and also other states also. Major crops that are grown and the states which is, the crops which is most suitable to be grown in that particular state. 72nd question. Which one of the following is not a site for in situ method of conservation of flora? There is something called fauna also. Flora is plants, fauna is animals. So which one of the following is not a site for in situ method of conservation? So you have to learn about what is in situ and what is ex situ. So what is in situ and what is ex situ, and what are the methods of conservation that are there for both flora and fauna. So you have to learn about the methods of conservation, and also you have to learn about in situ and ex situ methods. And here they have given Biosphere Reserve, Botanical Garden, National Park, Wildlife Sanctuary. You have also supposed to learn what is it, what is these, what are these. You individually have to learn about this, the basic definition, and then the difference between these among this, and the features and the regulations. Like for example, if a national park has to be declared, what is the process and who is responsible for declaring a certain region a national park? And but for example, botanical gardens and zoological parks, and under whose authority does it come? Does it come under the state government or the central government? And although, or else does it come under which ministry, or which and whether it comes under the forest ministry or whether it comes under someone else? So you have to go through that, and you have to go through at least these things that they have given: national parks, wildlife sanctuaries, botanical garden, and biosphere reserves, and what are the regulations and what are the things that are restricted here. For example, there is a difference between national parks and wildlife sanctuary, and you have to read about that, and what kind of activities are involved. Are humans involved inside these places? And if there are, for example, who is head of this national park or who is head of the wildlife sanctuary? Because UPSC conducts the exam for even IFOS Forest Service. You have to know all these things. Don't neglect all these things. Next question is 73rd question. Consider the following statements. In India, a Metropolitan Planning Committee is constituted under the provisions of the Constitution of India, prepares the draft development plans for metropolitan area, has sole responsibility for implementing government-sponsored scheme in the metropolitan area. So metropolitan planning committee is important. Similarly, district planning committee is important, and you have to also understand that they can ask you questions regarding the constitutional amendment that brought these metropolitan and district planning committees. You have to understand which was the amendment and what are the article that was inserted in the constitution for this purpose. And also you can learn about the other boards, the other boards like cantonment area. How are they administered? Who is the head? How are they managed? And also for this is related. I mean, even you have to read about the panchayats also, urban local bodies, panchayats, municipalities, and these planning committees. So all these are important, and also the articles and constitutional amendments that created these bodies. You have to learn about these. Recently, there was also news about the cantonment boards getting dissolved. So go through those news also, and and now what would happen to these areas that were there, civilian areas that were there earlier. The next question is, what is the difference between vote on account and interim budget? So this is about budget. So read about budget carefully. Read about all the details of the whole budget, how it is passed, how it is tabled and all, and even the components of the budget. Go through the annual financial statement of the government and see what are the uh, areas that are there, the items or the categories that are there in the revenue section and expenditure sections. Go through that. And these are the parliament chapter is very important in the polity. Go through the budget and also the process of the budget and also this year's budget. What are the proposals? Are there any new proposals? And if there are any new proposals, the reasons for it. The reason is also important. Why they are doing something. If the government is doing something, you have to know why they are doing something. So the reason is also important and how it affects people. So go through the basic things here. Parliament chapter. When you are going to the Parliament chapter, please be very careful and give importance to Parliament chapter. The next question is regarding the International Monetary Fund. Which one of the following statements is correct? It can grant loans to any country. It can grant loans to only developed countries. It grants loans to only member countries. It can grant loans to central bank of a country. So first thing that you have to learn is the International Monetary Fund, and then after that you have to learn the purpose of it and what are the voting powers, who are the members, and how everything is decided here. Is it through voting and how many? I mean, how do they get the voting power? And voting power is based on what? And the currencies, that is the special drawing rights. You have to know the currencies that are there in this special drawing rights on which the I mean, you have to know the currencies on which the special drawing rights are based on. And then we have to see if there are any current affairs news. And for example, if there is any crisis, who comes to help, whether it is in International Monetary Fund or World Bank. And you have to also read about other Bretton Woods institutions. And you have to learn the same things. I mean, you have to learn their purpose, you have to learn their functions, their presence, their membership, their voting rights, and other things. The next question is 76th question. The 2004 tsunami made people realize that mangroves can serve as a reliable safety hedge against coastal calamities. How does mangrove function as a safety hedge? That is, they're asking how does it function and how does it protect the coastal region. So first thing that you have to learn is what is mangroves and how it is protecting the coastal areas. What is the usefulness of mangroves and where is it available? For example, it's also a mapping question. The mangroves in India, and they may ask you the locations where it is there and what are the uses of it. So go through these things. I mean about mangroves, and also if they provide any other benefits apart from uh, you know saving the coastal regions. The next question is the Jain philosophy holds that the world is created and maintained by. So if they're asking about Jain philosophy, they can ask about the other philosophies like Buddhist philosophy. So Jain philosophy, Buddhist philosophy is important, and also other philosophies. For example, Vedic philosophies. There are 6 major schools of Vedic philosophy, and also 5 heterodox schools like Jain, Buddhist, Ajivika, Ajnana, and Charvaka. So you have to learn all this, and also the 6 major Vedic philosophies like Nyaya, Vaisheshika, Samkhya, Yoga, and Mimamsa. So go through these 5 plus 6 plus 5, 11 philosophies, and at least understand the basic tenets of this philosophy. 78th question. Salinization occurs when the irrigation water accumulated in the soil evaporates, leaving behind salts and minerals. What are the effects of salinization on the irrigated land? So you have to understand what is salinization and how does it affect, and how does salt and minerals are come to the surface. That is through capillary action. You have to read about this, and you have to read what are the steps that can be taken to reduce the salinization. Whether any, for example, drip irrigation or some other kind of techniques can be used to reduce salinization. Go through salinization. Salinization is also important. It has been asked once, twice, or thrice in the prelims, and go through these basic concepts. What is salinization? How does it affect this? How to control that? And what are its negative effects on the soils and on the plants? 79th question. The Red Book published by IUCN, International Union for Conservation of Nature and Natural Resources, contains the list of. They are talking about red data books. Now we have to learn what is red data books and the pages that are there in these books, and what does it signify. And recently, has there any addition or no addition to that red data book? And how are the things? Which are the things that are included in this red data books? And also the conservation status, types of conservation. There are different types of conservation status like critically endangered, endangered, threatened. You have to know what are those and how it is classified, and some of the threatened or extinct or critically endangered species of that are present. I mean, that was or are present in India, and also the animals that are important. So go through these basic things. The next question is why is offering of teaser loans by commercial banks a cause of economic concern? So the question itself is giving you hints. You have to read about anything that is of an economic concern. For example, this is about commercial banks. You have to learn about the regulation of commercial banks and also the regulation of public sector banks, PSU banks, and that has been asked many times. How they are regulated, how the the executives of the PSU banks are appointed, bank board bureau. That was asked. So, and also the cause of economic concern. So RBI is actually the regulator of the banks. So learn about the functions of RBI, and if there is any cause of economic concern, that can be not just be related to economics, that can be anything. You have to read that. For example, NPS of the banks was a cause of economic concern. Recently, certain banks in United States failed. You have to read why they have failed, and what are the steps that Indian central bank is taking to ensure that the same thing doesn't happen in India. That also is important. You have to ensure, the RBI has to ensure that the same thing is not happening in India, and what has happened there in the US, and what is being done by RBI to ensure that there is no system-wide or systematic risk in India for the Indian banks. If they say the banks are safe, why it is safe, and what is type of capital that are required, and regulations that the banks have to follow. So read about NPA, read about RBI, read about the PSU regulations, read about how the banking structures, what are the different kinds of banks, all kinds of banks which are there in India, from the normal regular banks to the PSU banks, and payment banks, and also regional rural banks. So go through the different banks, how it is regulated. So why there are different banks? What is the purpose of these banks? Read all this, and also any major concern that is there for the banks, and also through the banks if there is a concern for the economy. Read that. For example, there was a huge discussion on NPS 2 to 3 years back. So read what is NPA, how do you classify NPAs, and what is being done to control NPAs. There is a concept called bad banks also. So read about all that. The next question, 81st question is, an artificial satellite orbiting around the Earth does not fall down. This is so because the attraction of Earth does not exist as such. Distance is neutral as the attraction of Moon provides necessary speed for its steady motion, provides the necessary acceleration. I'm not going into the details of the options here. What is more important is you have to learn about the basic physics, science, centrifugal, centripetal forces, gravitations, and how the artificial satellites are able to work. And if there are satellites, natural satellites of different planets. For example, which planet has the largest number of satellites, which planets has the least satellite. All that you have to learn. And also centripetal and centrifugal force. And we've already discussed about learning about different types of satellites, different type of orbits that are there, and the purposes for which the satellites are used, and which kind of orbits are used for which kinds of satellites. For example, which kinds are used, orbits are used for Earth observation, for communication, etc. We have to learn about these things. 82nd question. In the context of Indian economy, consider the following statements. The growth rate of GDP has steadily increased in the last 5 years. The growth rate in per capita income has steadily increased in the last 5 years. So GDP is important, and the growth rate of GDP is important. We have to learn what is GDP and what is the growth rate of GDP, and whether it has increased or decreased in the last 5 years. The trends that are there. Is there a uniform trend or not? And per capita income is also there. So you have to learn about this. At least what is their last 5 years performance or the growth rate, whether it is negative, positive, whether it has steadily grown or it has steadily fallen. And you have to also learn about what is GDP, GDP deflator, GNP, all these concepts you have to learn. And how and whether and what is the whether GDP is a true measure of the development. So you have to learn the basic conceptual things, and what are the uh, cons of using the GDPs as a measure of economic development. So you have to understand the basic things. The next question is, in India, which of the following have the highest share in the disbursement of credit to agriculture and allied activities? So here in India, they are saying that which of the following has the highest share to the credit. The credit is the loan that they have given to agriculture and allied activities. So loans given to agriculture and allied activities, the share is important. Right now, search for the highest share, which bank has given the highest, which kind of banks has given the highest share, has the highest share to this sector. And then in the options, you can see commercial banks, cooperative banks, regional rural banks, and microfinance institution. So you have to go through the basics of these three, these all four, and who are the regulators, what are the functions of these banks, what are the major focus areas of these banks, and who are the regulators, and how is the regulations implemented. Microfinance institutions, so microfinance institutions has already been asked in the same paper, 2011 paper. Regional rural banks can be asked, cooperative banks, how they are regulated, how they are structured, who is the owner of it, ownership structure, and all that you have to learn. And the regulations, who is regulating it, whether RBI is regulating or some other body is regulating it. So these are the basic things. Go through the basics, learn about these things. The next is 84th question. Which of the following can aid in furthering the government's objective of inclusive growth? So the first thing that you have to do is learn what is inclusive growth, what is it, how it will benefit the society and the country, and what are the steps that are taken by the government, to increase the inclusive growth, to further the inclusive growth. Here the options are promoting self-help groups, promoting MSMEs, and implementing right to education. Here you have to again go through about what is self-help groups and the steps that are taken by the government to promote the self-help groups. What is MSME? How do you classify the enterprises, different enterprises, small enterprise, medium enterprise, and large enterprises? Whether it is through the number of employees or through the revenues. You have to learn this. What is the regulations? Uh, are there any regulations for these industries? And what are the steps that are taken to promote these industries? And you also have to learn about labor force participation and who is managing the data about the labor participations. And then you have to learn also about the Right to Education Act and also the articles and amendments that are related to right to education and the provisions of this act. You have to read in detail what are the things that are there. 85th question: why is the government of India disinvesting its equity in the central public sector enterprise CPSEs? So if something is given in the budget and government is saying that we are doing something, your job is to find out the purpose of it, why it is doing, because they are all asking why the government is taking this step. And if you read the purpose, you would be able to answer such questions. So whatever the government is doing, whenever the government is doing any new things, you have to understand what is the purpose and how they are doing it. Here they are asking about why they are disinvesting in equity in the central public sector. They may ask you why they are doing, for example, the trade in Indian currencies. So you would have to know the purpose of each of the government steps. That is strategically important steps. Read about these basic things, go through the budget document and read any new steps that the government is taking, or they have declared in the budget speech. If they have declared that they are going to do something, learn what they're trying to do. If they're doing, for example, if they're issuing bonds, you have to learn what is bonds, what is T-bills, what is government bonds, who is issuing the bonds, who is who is responsible for issuing and taking the money, and who will pay the interest part of it, and which account will get affected because of this money, whether it is it comes into the public account of India or consolidated fund of India or other account. 86th question is also again about the difference between asteroids and comets. You have to learn about the difference between these two objects uh, that is there in our solar system and also in our galaxy. Comets, asteroids, satellites. You have to go through this, and you have to go through at least the solar system, the orders of the planets, and they are saying that asteroids are found mostly between the orbits of Jupiter and Mars. So your job is to find out whether between any two planets are there anything special, and which kinds of planets are rotating in which direction, which is the largest planet, which is the gaseous planet, which is the smallest planet, which is the densest planet. You have to read about all that, and which is also apart from sun, which is the nearest star to our solar system. So all that you have to learn, and you have to learn about sun and solar flares. So read these things. Okay. The next question is the economic growth is usually coupled with, normally it is coupled with inflation, but they have given other terms here: deflation, stagflation, and hyperinflation. You have to read the concepts here, and they also can give you the description of it, description of these things, any one of these things, and ask you what does it depict, what is whose description have they discussed. So it can be the other way also. They have given this directly, or they can give you the definition of deflation, or they can give you the definition of inflation or stagflation or hyperinflation, and they can ask you what is it, whether it is hyperinflation or stagflation or inflation or deflation. They can give you the definition, and then they can ask you the same thing. So you have to understand the concepts and also the applied part of it. So if they give you an example, you have to be in a position to identify what is that and what would you call that. 80th question is the lowering of bank rate by the Reserve Bank of India leads to. So this question is related to monetary policy. and they're talking about if they lower the bank rate, what will happen. Say bank rate and all these things are related to monetary policy. You have to learn what is a bank rate and what are the types of rate that are there, and how does RBI, what are the tools that are there for the RBI, tools available in the hands of RBI to control the liquidity in the market, and also the regulatory tools that they have. To go through RBI, RBI is important. The establishment of the RBI, Reserve Bank of India, and also of, I mean, with, if it has any relation, the RBI has any relation to modern history before independence, you have to read about that. For example, RBI and Ambedkar are somewhere related, so go through that basic things. So even the history of the RBI is important because it comes in modern history part. So read about RBI, who are the contributors for the establishment of RBI, when was it nationalized, and other things. Uh, for example, Ambedkar had a role to play in the establishment of RBI. Read about that. I hope you're getting how to analyze or take things from the previous year's questions. So everything is given. You just have to read the basic things here. So you have to read about monetary policy. You have to read about RBI, basics of RBI, the tools available to RBI, the bank rates, uh, the repo rates, MSF, LAF, all these things that you have to read. And whenever you are going through the basics economy, you have to first prioritize these things. If certain things has already come, you have to read that and then go to other parts which were not so frequently asked. So if you have a crunch, time crunch, you can only stick to the main important points. So the next question is the 89th question. Westerlies in the southern hemisphere are stronger and persistent than in the northern hemisphere. Why? The first thing that you have to learn here is what is westerlies and what is its nature and how it is how it differs in different hemispheres and why it differs. I've asked why it differs, and also the distribution in the mapping in the geographical, I mean global map. Where are the westerlies? And here, when you see the options, southern hemisphere has less land mass as compared to northern hemisphere. Coriolis force is higher in southern hemisphere as compared to northern hemisphere. So you have to now you know that they've asked about when there was Coriolis force. Now read about what is Coriolis force and why it is important and how does it affect the climate or the monsoon. Read these things. Read the distribution of these westerlies, and if there are other winds, global winds, you can read about that also. 90th question is between India and Asia, the navigation time and distance can be greatly reduced by which of the following? Deepening the Malacca Straits between Malaysia and Indonesia, opening a new canal across Isthmus between Gulf of Siam and Andaman Sea. So here, this is a geography question, mapping question. They're asking, for example, if what would be done to reduce the timing for the navigation. So you have to understand that, for example, if in the map, uh, I have to see what are the impediments to for the navigation. If some landmass was not there, the things would have been much easier. You have to go through these all those important uh, you know, areas in the maps. For example, between North America and South America, uh, and now currently there are discussions that the North Pole can be used for navigation. So read about those things, and also you have to go through the main important straits. For example, here they have given Malacca Strait and Isthmus of Kra. You have to learn what is Isthmus and then locate where is Isthmus of Kra. What is a Gulf? Gulf is also important. Then Gulf of Sea and Andaman Sea. See the locations of this. See the map of Malaysia, Indonesia, the countries that are surrounding these countries, the straits and the straits that are there, the seas that are there. So we have to go through the basic geography of these areas. For example, there are other straits also. So what you have to read: what is a strait, what is an isthmus, what is a gulf, what is a sea, what is an ocean. So you have to learn all these things. Next question is the 91st question. Regular intake of fresh fruits and vegetables is recommended in the diet since they are good source of antioxidants. How do antioxidants help a person maintain health and promote longevity? Longevity. So the first thing that you have to learn is about the antioxidants. What is an antioxidant and how does it function and how does it help humans? And there are also other things that help that are very good for humans. For example, if there are some things which are they tell you to take fruits and vegetables. So read about the components of fruits and vegetables here. So and the source. I mean the what these fruits and vegetables provide, things that they provide. Go and read about this and how they help humans. How they help humans. This is also important. So, for example, you just Google search uh, what are the things that are provided by the fruits and vegetables to humans, like vitamins, minerals, and other things that they provide, and then go and read why they are useful to us. Similarly, there is something called probiotics that help enrich our gut bacteria and help digestion. So read about these things also. Anything that is that improves the human's life naturally is important. So whatever is eco-friendly, uh, natural way of doing something, read about that. The next question is the 92nd question regarding the Indus Valley civilization. Consider the following statements. It was predominantly a secular civilization. Religious element, though present, did not dominate the scene. During this period, cotton was used for manufacturing textiles in India. So whenever you are reading about anything in the past, in the ancient history, for example, in this case, Indus Valley civilization, you have to read about the society, culture, religion, culture, society. In the society, the status of women, status of the other sections of the people, that is like the caste system, whether the Shudras were allowed, whether there was any kinds of violence towards women, or whether there was any, whether they were granted equal status or not. All that you have to read, and also about the culture and religious aspects, and also the things that they used, the materials that they used. For example, whether they used any metals, what are the crops that they grew, what are the animal agricultural products that were there. Like for example, wheat, rice, were they growing wheat, rice, etc. So you have to go through this basic nature of the society and the things that they used. So it may be Indus Valley civilization, it may be Vedic civilization, it may be Gupta age, Mauryas, anything. So you have to know the polity, the nature of the polity, how did they rule, and whether there were republics, and the society, and the society. And for example, you can also learn about the currencies, currencies that they used. These are some of the things that you have to highlight, and you can make a note of it. You can, for example, you can make a tabular column also, where the top row can be like various periods, like Indus Valley civilization, Mauryan period, Gupta period, Harshvardhana's period, Vijayanagara period, and then you can write the different elements. What was the polity? What was the society? The nature of the society? What was the religion and culture? And if there are any, uh, you know, travelers who have visited the place, you can mention. I mean, mention that also. These are the things that you have to remember when you are reading certain things of ancient and modern, ancient India. 93rd question. The lower Gangetic plain is characterized by a humid climate with high temperature throughout the year. Which one of the following pairs of crops is most suitable for this region? Again, this is a geography question. They have given the areas and they have told which crops can be more suitable. Paddy, cotton, wheat, jute, paddy, jute, wheat, and cotton. So you have to know at least what are the necessary climatic conditions that are required for growing this paddy, one, cotton, wheat, jute. So these are the four things that you have to learn. Uh, take it as a homework. I mean, the takeaway from this question, and also other major crops and their climatic conditions and required climate conditions to grow, and the regions where which is most appropriate for these things to grow. And they can ask you in the other way also. They can ask you if you want to grow wheat and what is the climatic conditions that is required, and they can give you 4 conditions here. So you have to answer. You should be able to answer it both ways. 94th question. What could be the main reason for the formation of the African and Eurasian desert belt? It is located in the subtropical high pressure cells. It is under the influence of warm ocean currents. So they're asking why certain things has happened, the reasons. For example, if there is a desert, what is the reasons for the formation? So you have to learn the reasons for the physiographical or geographical features that has occurred. So read about that, and then read where are the location of these deserts. And for example, if there is Sahara desert, see what are the countries in which this Sahara desert is present, the geographical extent of this desert. So go through the major deserts of the world and see the location and see the reasons why they are so arid, why the conditions are so arid there, and why there is no rainfall. Moving on to the next question, 95th. The jet aircrafts fly very easily, smoothly in the lower stratosphere. What could be the appropriate explanation? So I had already explained the layers of atmosphere are important. The layers of atmosphere are important. Read about those layers and what are the unique things about those layers. This is a conceptual question, and they've asked why the lower stratosphere is conducive to jet aircrafts, and why other areas are not conducive to jet aircrafts. So read about that. They are given 2 statements, and you have to find whether that is true or false. The next question is 96th question. Consider the following statement. Biodiversity is normally greater in the lower latitudes as compared to the higher latitudes. Along the mountain gradients, biodiversity is normally greater in the lower latitudes as compared to the higher latitudes. So again, you have to learn about what is biodiversity, why it is important. We have already discussed about this, how biodiversity is helpful to humans, and the geographical distribution of the biodiversity area, and also the relative biodiversity variation across a mountain or across the various ecosystems. So you have to read about these things. For example, there are different ecosystems, and you have to read which is relatively better and which one of the ecosystems has less biodiversity, and where the biodiversity is more. And also you have to identify the areas, high biodiversity regions in the world. So biological hotspots are there. So read about that and understand why they have identified those areas and what are the unique features of those areas. 97th question. The Brahmaputra, Irrawaddy, Mekong rivers originate in Tibet and flow through narrow and parallel mountain ranges in the upper reaches. Of these rivers, Brahmaputra makes a U-turn in its course to flow into India. This U-turn is due to. So see here they're talking about the physical features. They're also talking about rivers. You can read about those rivers, their origins, and their origins, and their path, and their tributaries. So Brahmaputra, Irrawaddy, Mekong rivers, you have to know the origin. You have to know where it is starting, where it is ending, where it is flowing to. Then the path of it, which are all the countries it's passing through, and their tributaries. And here they're asking about physical features and how it is formed. So you have to understand, for example, if any of the global geographical physical features, for example, Himalayan mountains. So you have to understand how it is formed. Himalayan mountains. Or here they have discussed about the deserts, how the deserts are formed, main reasons for the formation. So whenever you see any unique physical feature, you have to understand that you have to see how the reasons of the formation. This is important. Other things they can ask you, they can change this, but the question here they'll ask you the same. Even here they have asked that this U-turn is due to, again, how that was formed. That was due, whether that was due to uplift of folded Himalayan series, syntaxial bending of geological young Himalayas, geotectonic disturbances in the tertiary folded mountains. So similarly, they can ask you about the how the black soil is formed, and they can ask you about plateaus, and they can ask you about islands, specific islands, why certain mountain ranges are next to the coasts, and how they are formed, what are the reasons. So we have to learn about the origins of or the formations or the reasons for the formation of certain physical features, geographical you know areas in the world. I hope this is clear. We'll move to the next question. The next is the 98th question. A state in India has the following characteristics. It's the northern part in the arid and semi-arid region. Its northern part is arid and semi-arid. Its central part produces cotton. Cultivation of cash crops is predominantly over food crops. Again, they have given a characteristics and then they've asked what is the state. So they can give the characteristics of states. They can give the characteristics of an animal. They can give a characteristics of a plant or a tree or a forest, or they can give a characteristics of a country. And they can ask you which one of them, I mean, which of the following states has all the above characteristics. So they can give you these characteristics and they can ask you to identify the particular state, particular animal, particular country, particular types of forest, or the particular type of plants. So you have to understand that you have to go through each state's, at least the characteristics that are there of a state. This we've already discussed here. I can see, you can see here clearly why that is important, because they are asking certain things like this. And next question is 99th. What is a virtual private network? So this is related to cybersecurity. Cybersecurity is also an important part of GS3. And you have to also learn about what is cyber, and what are the kinds of cyber attacks, what is a cyber attack and types of cyber attacks, and also the organization at the state level, who is looking after the cyber attacks. It is certain and all other things that are involved. We have to read about all this and what is a virtual private network, and what are the other things related to these computer networks. I hope this is clear. You have to read about cyber security, cyber attacks, types of cyber attacks, any new viruses or any ransomwares, other things that are there. At least if you have to associate them, you have to be able to do that. For example, they may give you a name and they may say, what is this? Or they may ask you about the organizations that is looking after the cyber crimes. Right now, cyber crimes are increasing. Financial crimes, cyber crimes, scams, online scams, and all. So you have to go through the steps that the government has already taken and the steps that they are taking. For example, there was a recent proposal that the telecom authorities should use data analytics to find out the scams, the numbers that are involved in scamming people, and they have to mention it as a scam or block those numbers. So telecom authorities have, companies have agreed to this. So you have to learn who is responsible or in India to control this online and cyber scams and cyber security, look after the cyber security. The last question is the Dharma and Rita depict a central idea of ancient Vedic civilization of India. In this context, consider the following statements. Dharma and Rita are the two terms that are there. Terms in ancient and medieval history are important. Even in the modern history, the terms are important. You have to make a note of all these terms that have come across and regularly revise it. And then, apart from that, you have to also read about the Vedic civilization, the later Vedic, pre-Vedic, all that you have to read, and also the nature of polity, society, and again, that like the way we had discussed about Indus Valley civilization, you have to read about the nature of the polity, nature of the society that was there, social aspects, and the conditions of women, women, Shudras, and other sections of the society, and also the currencies or the kinds of activities that they did. For example, did they do agriculture? What are the kinds of metals they used? What are the kinds of products? I mean, whether cotton was used, whether wheat was grown, whether rice was grown, whether cow was there or not, whether wheel was there or not. All these things you have to at least know. Like when was the metals introduced? When was copper, bronze, silver, gold, and what were the areas that was famous for? Which were the countries from where they were importing important things? When was wheel introduced? When was agriculture introduced? When were the agricultural tools introduced? All these things are important, and also the nature of the society aspect, the culture aspect, the religion aspect, and also the literature of that particular period. If there were any famous poets, what were the works, what were their works, what were their books, what were their dramas that they have written, and all those things. Literature, society, and the nature of politics. You may not have to know exactly the names of all the kings and queens or the leaders, but the major ones, and uh, whether they supported any particular religion or they were uh, against the particular religion. So read about these things, and I hope these sessions were useful. So we have completed 2011 paper. Then we'll start 2012 year. So whenever you are going through any textbook or any book or any current affairs or any materials, please keep these things in mind, that what UPSC is asking, what are their focus areas, and make a note of these things. And whenever you are going through these things, just be extra attentive. And if you are not getting any details, it's your job to go and search it elsewhere. So for example, if you are reading about any particular new technology, and if there are you come across any other alternative technologies, you can just Google search it, or search it somewhere else in any materials that is there. But that is your job, because UPSC has just given the syllabus and they have not given any source for the syllabus. So I hope these things are useful, and you would take benefit of these videos. We'll start with the next sessions from 2012 paper. Thank you. Thanks for attending this session.